I don't know that I like the idea of teams just deliberately scrumming for penalties that much.
Out of the corner of your eye, here's a steam train coming at you at 20 k's and 100 kilos, and you're just having to wait, not only for ball, but for impact.
I really would like to see the powers of the TMO reduced. And maybe one way you could accommodate that is you go back to what originally was the means of using the TMO, which is basically for in-goal incidents only.
DSPN, the Devlin Sports Podcast Network, is proudly brought to you by Novus Glass. If you're travelling around the country this summer to a local or an international sporting event and you get a chip or crack in your windscreen, and it can happen, as soon as you notice it, Novus it. Windscreen repair or replacement is easy with Novus Glass. 68 branches around the country. So just call or drop into your local branch direct. Whether it's a cracked windscreen from a rogue cricket ball or a chip from a rogue stone on the road, get it sorted with Novus Glass. Notice it, Novus it.
Welcome to the DSPN.
Team New Zealand's in trouble.
Oh, he's done it again, Ricky Herbert.
The Devlin Sports Podcast Network.
DSPN, he joins us every week. Tony Johnson from Sky Sport. And wrapping up the year, we've got a couple of weeks to go. We thought we'd do something different today. Tony's Christmas wish list. He's got 6 things on the list, 6 ways to make rugby better. Now, 3 of these are probably, you'd think, a little more of the traditional variety. Tony, these are things that are happening in the game right now. 3 of them are more kind of novel ideas. As always, we want your comments, your thoughts on all of these.
Yeah, look, I'll absolutely
put some caveats on this.
These are simply ideas.
Right.
A couple of them, I think, have definitely got merit. A couple of them, I'm just going to chuck them out there and see what people think.
Great.
People might not like them. People could find ways where maybe that won't work. And I think one of the problems is that whenever you change the law in the game, there is always a can of worms waiting to be opened. There's always a knock-on effect that perhaps you didn't see. And so, you know, any of these ideas might be in that category as well. But I'll just have a bit of fun with it.
Tony, do we have too many laws in the game for a start, though?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
But the trouble is I don't know how you make the law book smaller.
Right.
That's the problem. You can weed out a few, but then you suddenly find that things that detract from the game become legal or passable.
Look, I had a conversation over the weekend. I won't say who it was with, but it was a really interesting conversation with somebody who has reffed at the very highest levels, and they were just telling me about games that they'd reffed at a World Cup and controversial things that had happened in these games and a couple of incidents. And if I actually detailed them, you'd know who it is and who. But
yeah.
So I won't. But the interesting thing that was said after a couple of beers was that I could have awarded this decision this way, and this would have happened, and a try would have been scored or whatever, and that's perfectly legitimate. I ruled it this way, and it was perfectly legitimate. And that was the frustration. And he said, and I've thought about this, guy said to me, I've thought about it ever since, that this team won the game, whereas this team could have won the game, and it all came down to an interpretation of a rule.
Yeah.
And it's not like I'm a bad person and I got it actually wrong, because I actually got it wrong, I got it right, I got it right, I got it wrong.
Yeah. And often what happens is it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. People say, oh, just keep the game going, play on. But hang on a moment, they scored a try from a knock-on 6 phases ago.
Yeah.
It should have been called up.
Yeah,
It's a no-win situation in a way, and we'd all love to see the law book simplified, the game simplified. It's just not possible. Rugby is a complicated game, but when it's played really well, it's a great game.
It's a beautiful game to watch. All right, I'm going to start with number 1. And this has changed everything about rugby. Is there too much kicking in the game? And with the box kicks and the way that they are used these days, we see so much aerial combat that we never saw in the game. So this is the first one you've got.
Yeah, that's as in box, B-O-X, not B-O-K-S. No, I haven't. Okay.
Here come the comments.
It's a funny thing because you look back at these classic matches that start popping up all over the place, and we heard so much talk about how great the 1967 All Blacks were, and they played this free-flowing style of rugby. Back in those days, you could kick the ball into touch directly and you would get the line out. The line out would form wherever the ball went out. Didn't have to be inside your own 22. I was staggered at the amount of kicking and the amount of lineouts that there were in those games.
Yeah.
That they would basically win the ball, boot it into touch, have another line out. win the ball, boot it into touch, and just work their way downfield that way. So
It's almost NFL style, isn't it?
well, yeah, but it didn't make for great viewing. I was going to say, in those days, it was probably all about the winning of it and the battle and all that sort of thing, and it's what people were used to, but you wouldn't tolerate it now. So that was one of the first things that happened that really affected the kicking game in rugby, was that they said you can't kick the ball out on the full unless you're inside your own 22. There have been some variations. The 50-22, which of course came from rugby league, the 40-20. I think that's been a great development because it promotes skillful kicking.
Bingo. That's exactly what it does. It's a real, you have to get it exactly right. We saw Damien McKenzie pull out an absolutely brilliant one against Scotland, didn't we?
They can be game changers.
Game-changing, yeah.
And often a kicking game is brutally effective, very good. Teams like the Springboks have perfected the box kicking game, and they've used it well. I think England's another one with a great box kicking game. But what happened when they changed the law about, they called it escort runners, or players sort of blocking, it basically put all of the advantage with the kicking team, provided they can kick the ball into the right areas, and that's a skill. Get a good chaser after it. It's always going to advantage the team who's doing the kicking, because it's so much harder to defend now when the chasing player from the attacking team has just got a free run to come through, get airborne. They've got all the momentum with them, and the chances are they're going to win the ball back for their team. And I just wonder whether it's maybe taken things a little bit too far the other way. If that's the case, then why not broaden the mark? You see, you used to be able to take a mark anywhere on the field. You could take a mark from a dropout 22
I can't even remember that.
The 10-metre mark or the halfway.
Yeah, right, yeah.
So if you were able to take a mark anywhere on the field, would that perhaps reduce the inclination that teams have to kick? Because what you see often happens now, they go 2 or 3 phases moving the ball, nothing happens, and so they boot it, and it becomes a pattern. So maybe if you were allowed to mark the ball anywhere on the field, and it would just be like a free kick, you'd have to take a tap, or you could kick it if you wanted to. But
could you kick it for touch?
You could kick it for touch, but if you put it out on the full, you'd go back. It wouldn't be like a penalty kick. Yeah. So maybe that's just a way of discouraging quite so much kicking.
Okay, Tony, just one question on that. In terms of protecting the guy that's catching the ball, and, you know, I was having a discussion about this with another mate over the weekend. God, I talk a lot of rugby over the weekend, but it was just simply that the guy catching the ball, trying to figure out how to improve the All Blacks on doing this, and whether we bring, an AFL guy in, whether you start actually going up with 2 hands like basketball, instead of trying to catch it like this, you start going like this and getting it in the air, because then if you get touched, it's a penalty straight away. But how do you protect that guy? Because as you say, out of the corner of your eye, here's a steam train coming at you at 20 Ks and 100 kilos, and you're just having to wait, not only for ball, but for impact. It has seriously, for me, disadvantaged whoever's underneath it, doesn't it?
Yeah,
and your natural body inclination is, when you see that, is to kind of turn to brace, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a really hard thing to do, to sit there and stand there and take a hit like that.
Yeah.
And I just wonder whether that somehow they need protecting a little bit more.
Yeah, as I say, I think it's maybe just swung the pendulum just a bit too far one way. I mean, I still think good kicking games, good kick and chase games should be rewarded. But if you kick the ball a bit too far and the guy is standing, say, 5 metres outside his own 22 and you can call a mark, well, that discourages you from taking that kick again.
Okay.
That was just a thought.
That's one. As I said, keep leaving comments. Number 2, TMO. How do we improve this?
Yeah, well, at the moment there's a problem, because the way in the Southern Hemisphere, and well, it's certainly in the Sanzar competition, we want to see the game played, requires less involvement of the TMO, only coming in really for serious foul play, clear and obvious mistakes, and the rest of it is left up to the referee on the field. That's not the way the powers that be in other parts of the world see it. They want the TMO there casting a vigilant eye over everything, so that there's no room for, but there was a knock-on back there sort of thing. So they want the game policed, and of course there's the foul play thing comes into it as well. To me, I really would like to see the powers of the TMO reduced, and maybe one way you could accommodate that is you go back to what originally was the means of using the TMO, which is basically for in-goal incidents only. That kind of came out to the last pass, maybe within a few metres of the goal line, sort of thing, and now it's spread, spread and spread.
Yeah.
So if you were to limit the TMO to foul play only and in-goal incidents, and give the teams a challenge, a captain or a coach's challenge. Now, look. I'm a fan of American sport, and I love the American football, and I love the coaches on the sideline. They do a quick check and they chuck the flag on the ground, the red flag on the ground. It's a coach's challenge, but you've got to get it right.
Yeah. And
we did have captain's challenges for a while in New Zealand. What was happening is that teams are scoring a try, and the other team would go, challenge. There might have been a knock on there, might have been something, and it slowed the whole process down. So you've got to legislate against that frivolous use of it. So basically, maybe you have 3 of them per game. Each team is allocated 3 captain's challenges or coaches' challenges, depending on what they want. But if you lodge one and it's incorrect, you lose one of your other ones.
Okay, right. So there's the double jeopardy almost.
There's a bit of a double jeopardy. In other words, if you're going to challenge, you better be sure of your ground.
Okay.
And they would have to have some parameters. You can't go back 16 rucks or 10 rucks or 12 rucks or whatever. It used to be 2, and anything beyond that where you just take your chances. The problem is with it, of course, is to say we want to dance and play in the orchestra. We want the cake and we want to eat it.
We want a fast game.
So we want a fast game. We want an entertaining game. We don't want the game slowed down, but God help the referee if there's a mistake.
There you go.
That's the problem with it.
And look, cricket's got it as well, right? You've got your challenges there now as well. And we saw it with the New Zealand and the West Indies in the first test where we blew a couple of those, and then a couple of obvious ones we could have used them for later on in that second innings when we desperately needed them. We didn't have them. I suppose that then becomes a skill in itself, doesn't it? Or whoever's on the sideline monitoring the game has got to see it. But I agree with you in terms of, look, and football suffocating itself with VAR as well. I still believe in the fact we've got humans playing and humans reffing, and you will miss something. But these things which are marginal passes and different things, the ref's on the ground, he can see, or he or she can see. And that one there, I think you'll get a lot of support for.
Yeah, look, as I say, I think you've got to help the referees to do their job. You've got to support them. It's a really, really tough job, and they want to get it right. And
every ref does.
You have to have a mechanism, particularly now where there's so much scrutiny, with you've got high definition cameras that can get into places where cameras never went. Back in the days when rugby was basically shot on one wide shot and maybe a mid shot, and that was about all you got to see. It's different now, and so mistakes get magnified. And so you do have to have some sort of backup system. I just like the idea of going back more where we accept that there's a little bit of human error. We'll creep into it from time to time. We have a safety net, but we're not dealing with something that's going to dominate the game.
Yeah, I totally agree. Anything that can speed it up like that. And also the TMO doesn't always get it right. That's the other thing. Scrums. Okay, a lot of talk about this, especially in the wake of Ireland, South Africa, right?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, some of the comments that have been made about the scrum, one that I read somewhere is that the scrum is a means of starting play or restarting play, and that was probably the original intention of it. Was someone knocked the ball on, or there was something like that, and so you restarted play with a scrum. Power scrummaging really came in the 70s. We saw it first with the Lions here in New Zealand, I think in 1971. By 1977, when they came back, the Lions, they were obsessed with scrum
Remember that
power.
fourth test where we had a three-man front row?
Exactly, because they were absolutely destroying the All Black scrum, because they developed techniques of packing tighter and lower and getting more power into the scrum. And then, of course, in the 80s, we had the issues with spinal injuries. It was such a shock when it found out how many people had suffered these really serious injuries. So they had to go about protecting players, and so they were far more vigilant about how the scrum, or became over the years far more vigilant over how the scrum was set up, all designed for safety. I think where things are developed, I think a dominant scrum should always be rewarded,
especially at test level.
Absolutely, yeah. And you look, it's been one of the great progressions this year that the Springboks have made. We've made so much about the way that their back play has developed, but I think one of the unsung heroes of the Springbok coaching staff is Dan Human, who's their scrum coach, I believe, and their scrum has just become an absolute weapon. And so if you overpower the opposition at scrum time, and that results in you getting the ball, great. What has happened, and we've seen it here, we've seen it in Super Rugby, Provincial Rugby, we've seen it in Test Rugby. I don't know that I like the idea of teams just deliberately scrumming for penalties that much. It's something that's open to them. It's a course of action that you can take. But when you get teams clearly setting down a scrum with a view of winning a penalty, somehow I think, again, it's just the old pendulum.
Yeah, is it the purpose of the game?
Is that the purpose of the game? Look, again, feel free to disagree, people.
Sure,
it's just a thought. It's just an idea. So do you perhaps negate that a little bit by going, all right, scrum penalties now become free kicks, like they were when we did the experimental law variations?
Yep.
Or if you overpower the opposition team and you get the ball, is that not enough of an advantage?
Because they're all tied up going backwards, and you've got men going forward.
I mean, you've still got to have laws in place or measures in place to stop a team collapsing a scrum deliberately 5 metres from their own goal line to avoid a pushover try being scored. And that becomes a penalty try.
Yeah.
That wouldn't change, in my opinion.
No. But then again, I'm always just find it so befuddling when teams who are on the defensive like that, and you look at whatever the ref's deciding if it's a scrum penalty. Why would you give away a penalty at that time? It's kind of like the defensive side. It's the last thing you're going to do.
Or sometimes there's no choice. It just seems at the moment there's an inevitability that when a scrum is being overpowered, it's going to result in a penalty.
Okay.
That's all.
Yeah. All right, that's number 3. Again, keep the comments coming. Now, these ones, 1 till 3, these are kind of law changes that you want, or things that could actually, the lawmakers could sit down and go, okay, we can actually rewrite that. The next 3 are just all about more of your, what you call your novelty factor in terms of how you think the game can improve. And this number 4 is the amount of time it takes to play a game. Now, this has crept in over the last, 4 or 5 seasons, where we get 40 minutes of a half that can take an hour almost, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
52 minutes to an hour. We've seen that. Again, it's something a bit like the coach's challenge that I've taken from American football, American sport generally. When the ball goes out of play, the clock stops.
Yep.
Now, an American football game is made up of quarters. What are they, 15 minutes
15-minute
each?
quarters, yeah.
Yeah, and basketball is, I think
quarters.
it's quarters again.
12s.
Yeah. So you're basically talking about, in an American football game, an hour of actual play time.
Yeah.
But it takes, 2.5?
It can take 3 hours. Yeah.
And the reason is because when the ball goes out, you stop the clock.
Plus, they got the timeout situations and the ad break timeouts and all of those.
Yeah.
Of course,
So just thinking, if you brought that into rugby, how would you make that work? I'm not saying this would work. It's just something to contemplate, where you reduce the halves to 30 minutes. If the ball goes out, the clock stops, or if you call a scrum, the clock stops, and you've got a certain amount of time, like the play clock, to get play underway again. And if you don't do that, it's a delay of game and it's a free kick to the other team, something like that.
Yep.
It might achieve something. I really don't know. It's
how much time could we shave off if, say, like ball goes out into touch off a kick, bang, as soon as it's over the line, clock stops, as opposed to at the moment, what are we doing? We're waiting for the ball to come back, everyone to assemble for a line out.
I don't know. It just maybe it's a way of just speeding things up. If someone gets injured, for example, they've got a minute to deal with it. And if it's a serious injury, then obviously they've got to stop and get the player off the field. Otherwise, you take them to the sideline, and then the game goes on.
I always think if somebody gets injured, the clock should stop. I've always thought that.
Yeah.
And okay, look after the player. If you're going to look after the player, why is the clock ticking?
Yeah.
So, okay.
It's just a thought.
It's just a thought.
I don't know whether we could make that one work, but
What I would love is I would just love to be a fly on the wall of the lawmakers actually sitting down and how long it would take them and to agree on anything of it to do with these.
Yeah.
But look, part of it is also that as fans, as custodians of the game, and you've even got a more responsible position because you call these games and you spend an awful amount of time doing it. Part of your job and responsibility is to think about this stuff, I would think, isn't it?
I don't know.
If you love the game, isn't it? You want to make the game better.
Look, the more I think about the 30 minutes with the I can't see it working, but people might have an idea about how it might
Tony,
work.
if they approve 5 out of your 6, you're doing pretty well on the averages, right?
Okay.
Let's do the advantage law now. And that's changed as well.
Yeah. I mean, at the moment, I don't think it's too bad in that advantage has to be real. So if the ball is lost, then it's not automatically advantage over And I'm just wondering whether maybe that could be the case. You lose the ball, you gain the ball from a turnover, that's it. Possession of the ball is advantage. That way, at least, you would cut out the thing where you might go 4 or 5 passes, whatever, and this is just for knock-ons and things like that.
Right.
Penalty advantage is a different beast because, again, the need to provide a real advantage so that if you have a penalty advantage and you're under pressure, you can't do anything with it, well, then you come back to the penalty, fair enough. But for things like knock-ons and spilt balls and things like that, is possession of the ball
How
not
many
enough?
phases are you talking?
No, for knock-ons?
Yeah.
No, the opposition grabs a hold, secures the ball. That's it.
That's
Advantage over.
Okay, advantage over. So it can't be, in terms of penalty advantage, how many phases do you think is enough?
Yeah. Again, it's got to be real. Penalty advantage, I think, is one. But you don't want them coming back from 40 metres down the field.
No, okay, right, yeah.
People
All right.
might have ideas about how long should an advantage last. Should it be 10 metres down the field, or should it be a certain number of passes? I don't know, but I'm thinking more in terms of loss of possession, knock-on, stuff like that. You get the ball, that's it, advantage over.
Done. All right, number 6, and this one's been talked about a bit as well, the subs bench, because now, and it was interesting, wasn't it, watching Russie against... Was it Wales or Ireland? I can't remember, sorry, which test it was. But all of them came on at once. It was like another team came on. It was like the whole bench was cleared. And so we've now got, and this is a bugbear of mine because I still believe that this is a sport where attrition is meant to be a part of the sport. And
Fatigue.
Yeah, that's so.
Fatigue is something that helps to open a game up.
Yeah, and also that's what you're trying to do to your opposition is to tire them out, isn't it?
When at the end of the game, at the moment, you've got 16 players on the field who weren't there at the start of the game.
And those players quite often are the ones that are talked about more than the ones who started the game. Now, they're almost more important at some stages now, aren't they?
The things like, the bomb squad or the POM squad, as England call it, they're very clever the way they've been used, the different splits, the innovation, 6-2, 7-1 even. I like 6-2. I personally, I'm not so keen on 7-1, but if teams want to do that and pick a hybrid player as part of their backup forward squad, someone who can play on the wing, well, fair enough too, good luck to them. But I don't know, I just wonder whether it's too many to have 8 replacements each side on the field at the end of a game. And maybe you could restrict it to maybe 6 tactical with the backup of 2 injured players.
You're still going to have your 2 front rowers, aren't you?
And a hooker.
And a hooker.
Yeah.
So there's 3 out of 6 done.
I mean, we've come a long way from the days where, and I can remember reading about test matches that were played back in the 1950s.
Who was our captain? Ron
Elvidge,
who played with a broken
collarbone or sternum or something like that.
Something hideous. And you weren't allowed to sub anyone unless they were basically carried off, weren't they?
Well, you couldn't sub anyone.
There's no sub anyone.
You couldn't sub anyone.
Okay, right.
So you would have players, they'd maybe have 11 fit players, and you'd have a flanker with a busted collarbone or a dislocated shoulder
out on the wing,
hoping like mad that no one came his way.
Yeah, right.
And of course, you probably have players, or you definitely would have had players who were concussed.
Yeah, for sure.
Things like, and so they eventually, they had what they called emergencies, so that when you picked your team, you would have a couple of players back up just in case someone pulled out the day before the test or something like that. And then it wasn't until the 1960s, I think it was 1968, that they changed the law and you were able to bring on injury replacements. And famously, the first guy that did that for the All Blacks was Ian Kirkpatrick.
Wow.
Brian Lahore went off. I think he had a broken thumb and he did something else. And Ian Kirkpatrick came on a test against Australia and he scored 3 tries. And that's
what a legend he is.
Yeah, but in those days, you only had, I don't know how many you had, but you only had probably a couple of backups, maybe 3 or 4, and it's gradually expanded over the years to the point now we've got 8. Now, as you quite rightly pointed out, 3 of those have to be there for safety reasons because of the scrum.
Yeah.
No question. But do we need really 5, 6 forward replacements? So that's just an idea. It will not go down well with teams who from countries who use the bench really well.
And congratulations to them because as you said, it's clever. especially the South Africans have thought about this and are working it better than everyone else is, right? So good on them for doing that.
All I'm just, as you said, attrition, fatigue, those are the sorts of things that allow a game to open up towards the end where players are tiring a wee bit, and you've taken that away a little bit. I mean, it's just a development that's happened in the game, and again, as I say, it's just a thought.
Food for thought.
I've got one more.
Okay, we've had too much kicking, TMO, scrum, amount of time it takes to play a game, advantage law, subs bench, 7.
One more. Any home team whose stadium announcer plays Sweet Caroline should automatically be a penalty to the visiting team.
That's going to be across every sport in the world now, though, isn't it?
I know.
Because it just seems to be, it's now in every stadium in every sport.
Boston Celtics. Boston Red Sox.
Red Sox play it now.
Red Sox.
They were the original ones. They started it.
Well, yeah, and you saw it the first I heard. It was in that movie, Fever Pitch, that they adapted Nick Hornby's book, the brilliant book about the Arsenal fan, and they turned it into an American thing with Jimmy Fallon in it. And that's when I first heard that was a thing. But now it's everywhere.
Even my young children think it's a banger, Tony. So.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, we'll put a line through that one, I guess.
Comment on all of these. Let us know what you think. And if you've got other ideas of your own that you want to throw into the mix, give us those and we'll reconvene and we'll do this at a later date. Yeah. We'll actually get together a whole lot of the feedback, Tony, and we'll come back with this.
Yeah,
okay?
As I say, these are not designed to take away the strengths of some teams. They're just ideas. You know, we've got to think, what do we want this game to look like?
Big thanks from the Devlin Sports Podcast team to the Novus Glass team for sponsoring this episode of DSPN. Novus Glass loves backing Kiwis and supporting New Zealand. In fact, every Novus Glass job helps plant native trees. And so far, they've donated over 20,000 native trees. So if your windscreen gets chipped or cracked, it's your chance to make a difference and back the team doing good in New Zealand. Just call your local Novus Glass branch direct. Notice it, Novus it.
DSPN.